Great. Hi, my name is Madison Margolin. I am a cannabis journalist. I write for LA Weekly, Rolling Stone, Vice, Mary Jane, Herb, High Times, all of them. So, and we have a full panel of very diverse women in the cannabis industry who are all doing vastly different things and yet really pushing this space forward. So I'm going to let each of them introduce themselves and then we'll get started. So we can start with Tracy Ryan on the far left.
I get to go first. Hello everyone, my name is Tracy Ryan. I am the CEO of CannaKids CK Sciences, which is my pharma arm and a nonprofit called Saving Sophie. After my little girl was diagnosed with a brain tumor at just 8.5 months old, I was turned on to cannabis. And what has happened since has been nothing short of miracle after miracle after miracle, which we now know is rooted in science. Over the years, after watching my little girl become so successful with cannabis, that's what inspired me to create CannaKids, which is a California-based oil line. We work with patients of all ages with a focus on children. We've worked with over 3,000 patients in California, and we've consulted thousands around the world. And we're now funding research at the Technion Institute in Israel, where we have 41 scientists looking at this plant for pediatric cancer and adult disease. And now my child has her own clinical trial going on at UCLA. She is a trial of 1. We got her brain tumor tissue implanted into animal models. We're looking at her immune response, and we're looking at how cannabis is turning her into a superhuman. So thank you for having me.
It's hard to top that. I'm Rosie Rothrock. I'm the VP of Branding and Marketing for a company based out of San Jose called Caliva. Caliva is vertically integrated in the true sense of the word, which is rare in most industries. And I've been involved since the beginning, so opened up a retail store with them and then kind of was there through the build out and expansion of our grow and our manufacturing operations. We have a research and testing lab on site. We do extraction, and now we are operating as a delivery service as well.
Hi everybody, my name is Alice Moon. I've been in the industry for 8 years now. Started as a trimmer, then a bud tender, and then last year I launched the Yelp of Edibles with the goal of helping people find the right edible for them based on their dietary needs and location. We were up for Best Tech for Dope Magazine Awards, but the ironic thing is my tech never fully worked. So I realized that tech was not my passion, connecting with the community and educating is my passion, so I shut down my company in December. And since then, I've just become even stronger of an advocate. Recently featured in LA Weekly, thanks to Madison. You can read that article on Monday to learn more about me. And last week, I produced and co-hosted the California Cannabis Awards, which was the first cannabis event to happen at LA Live.
Yay!
Hi everyone, my name is Jennifer Lujan. I've been in the industry for about 5 years. I first started really as a personal volunteer project when I started working with cultivators to donate product to veterans. And through that I got inspired to work directly with hospitals and specifically patients who were terminally ill but low income. So I started a nonprofit called Weed for Good, and started basically giving free low-cost cannabis to patients who otherwise couldn't access it or afford it. And then through conversations with Ease, that led for them to bring me on to head their social impact, which is really sort of looking at and working with our dispensary partners and our brands to how we could be creating a movement towards social good and looking at issues like social equity, patient support, supporting research and measurement around opiate addiction and PTSD.
Thank you. So there's a lot of excitement right now around the cannabis industry as this quote-unquote new industry here in California since we legalized it, with Prop 64 in 2016. However, cannabis obviously has been around for millennia. Queen Elizabeth used it for her period cramps, and women today are also using it for their period cramps. So one thing is that women have been leading this industry for thousands and thousands of years, from the black market, female growers, and the Emerald Triangle, and so forth, up until today in the legal, medical, and adult use market. So for my question to all of you to start off is, why cannabis? Why is this something that you want to be involved in? And why don't we start from right to left this time, just to switch it up.
Yeah, I mean, before, I was really inspired just from from the first, from the medical side. And I think once, I actually got to see patients and how this was really changing and how people were using cannabis, my mind completely changed. I think there was, and slowly we've been able to destigmatize it because we're seeing the benefits and specifically a lot of how this is really helping patients. And then moving away from that, even as just a wellness tool. And, we were talking about it earlier today, moms using it and just using it for, every single day. So I think there's a wide range of how we're looking at it and across the spectrum, that it's basically it could be used as, for anyone.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm originally from New Orleans, and in New Orleans, all we do is drink. So when I moved to LA is when I really discovered cannabis. I had tried it once or twice, but never really used it in New Orleans. And when I came to LA and got to try it, I realized the medicinal benefits behind it. I was able to sleep. My anxiety, I got off of antidepressants. It helped me in so many ways, which inspired me to join the industry and work as a bud tender. And working as a bud tender, I got to help more and more people and saw how many different people were using cannabis. We had cancer patients, I had 18-year-olds, and then we had 70-year-olds. And the most amazing moment was when someone came in with their dog and told me about what was going on with their dog. And I said, well, now all of a sudden there's pet treats, and I can't speak to if they work or not, but you could try a pet treat for your dog. And then she came back a few months later and told me those last few months of her dog's life were the best he had been. And so cannabis can help so many different people, and I'm really passionate about helping and educating people on how to use it for their benefit.
I had just read Lean In, and nothing felt like a bigger and more exciting opportunity to lean into than the cannabis industry. So I joined in early 2015. The industry looked really different at that time. And I think from the outside looking in, I didn't know what I didn't know about cannabis at that point. So for me, a lot of learning about how amazing it is and how impactful this drug, this plant can be to people, I learned on the job. Which was lucky. It could have gone the other way. So for me, it really was this opportunity to be part of creating something, and luckily for all of us, it has turned into not just, for me, that was not just creating a dispensary. It became creating an industry, creating this opportunity for more female executives in a brand new industry, and then obviously all the wellness benefits that cannabis has since provided to people. And I've learned from customers' stories all the way along that have just solidified my choice to be in this industry and be super passionate and lean all the way into it.
For me, it was kind of ironic because I was just as stigmatized as the rest of the world about how the devil's lettuce was going to hurt you. And when my little girl was diagnosed with this tumor and they told us that chemo was the only option for her, luckily it was a 90% success rate in her living, but it was an 85% recurrence rate. So some of these kids are on chemotherapy for 13 or 14 years until puberty slows down. And I started looking at everything possible that we could do for our little girl to make this experience easier, because really all I knew about pediatric cancer was what I saw on St. Jude's commercials, which was horrific. The really thin children with the hollowed eyes and the bald heads, and I couldn't imagine what it was going to be like for my little girl to go through that. And ironically, we were getting all these Facebook messages from overseas from my husband's old roommate saying, try cannabis oil, and we thought these people were stoned out of their minds. We couldn't imagine giving an infant weed. And then through a chain of events on social media, Ricky Lake from Film and Television and Abby Epstein were put in touch with us, and they told us about a documentary they had just started filming that's now called Weed the People, that you guys will be able to watch in theaters this year and then will be streaming on Netflix in February. And it wasn't until these women brought this to me that I was like, okay, it's Ricky Lake, so there must be something to it, because this lady is all about the birthing movement and about helping women and mothers. And so that's when we decided to try it on our little girl. And what we saw was unbelievable. Our little girl had no chance of retaining her vision. They said as a best case scenario, she would have movement vision in her right eye, but because her type of tumor strangles the optic nerves, her vision there was no way to save it. And we shrank that tumor by over 95% in 13 months, and the doctors gave the credit to the cannabis oil. And not only, which was pretty exciting 5 years ago when no one was, we call ourselves pre-Sanjay Gupta because literally no one was talking about this when we started it. We were hiding in the shadows with the rest of the moms and dads for that matter. And then when her bone marrow repaired itself after she had suffered from 9 blood transfusions, and then she just stopped needing them while still in the same doses of chemotherapy, and her doctor came to us and said, we too cannot explain this. We too want to give the credit to the cannabis oil. We knew we were onto something. And then from there, when we were getting these terminally ill patients, and we don't save them all, but there's ones in specific, like our kid named AJ, he's now a young man, he's 19. He came to us with 22 tumors in his bones and lungs and 90 days to live, taking Oxy and Norco as a 16-year-old with no chance of survival. The kid had bones removed in his ribs and his spine. He was in a metal cage at one point just to hold him together because the cancer was eating away so much. And 90 days was his expiration date, and they didn't even expect him to make it that long. And when that 90 days hit, and that kid was the healthiest he had been in 3 years, and in those 3 years he'd had 6 cancer recurrences. They'd never ever gotten him clear of disease. When he started getting healthier, and his parents said, okay, we'll let you do one more PET scan because we know he's not going to be with us much longer. And there was no cancer in his body at all. It was then and there we knew we were really onto something, and that's what changed my life. My daughter getting well, and then seeing that she wasn't just this miraculous happening, that there's other people that were benefiting from this. That's when I decided to change my life, my passion, and I pivoted. And now one of my major focuses is understanding why this is happening, so we can get this kind of treatment, the targeted treatment that these people need, more effectively and more efficiently, so we're not guessing anymore.
Thank you, Tracy. So kind of what I'm seeing is, and especially with moms like Tracy, is a lot of women are making sort of the purchasing decisions for the household, mothers doing research for their children or for their own parents or family members or friends. So how do you think female consumers and female leaders, branding experts, executives are changing the image of cannabis as a wellness product or a lifestyle product, in addition to being like a true medicine and an adult use recreational product?
I personally think that the recreational and the medical market, as far as who's buying, are different. With us at CannaKids, 95+% of all the calls we get are women. They're moms, they're caregivers, they're aunts, they're grandmothers. The dads call because mom's busy, is what they tell us. So we know that when we're looking at the medicine, which, by the way, cannabis is a female plant, just got to put that out there. We know that when we're looking at the medicine side of things, that women have really become those advocates and the decision makers, hence the reason they call us mama bears. And for me as a woman in the medical side of this, I feel I have been much more successful because no doctor wants to cross a mom when their kid is at stake. Let me tell you, I'm not somebody that you want to tell no when it comes to my child. So I think that has given us these really incredible voices as moms, standing up for our rights as humans to have access to a plant that can be so healing. What is happening with our government today is a human rights issue. We have enough evidence, we have enough research. The rest of the world is federally legalizing this, and I think that as women on this platform, we have a very strong voice and a very strong position, and that's why we're seeing a lot of the women be the trailblazers in this industry, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think a lot of women are feeling more comfortable coming out of the canna closet now that California is adult use. It's becoming a thing where women can replace their wine with weed, and it feels a little bit more normal because we're trying to normalize it, and so it doesn't feel as scary anymore.
Have you seen the new meme, Alice, that's floating around? We were just talking about this. There's this new meme that's out that I'm obsessed with, and it says, "Mommy needs a joint should be just as acceptable as mommy needs a glass of wine," and that's what we're here trying to do.
Yeah. And it makes a big difference when, and we were talking about this, like social media, when you have media platforms that are very specific to women and destigmatizing it. Mm-hmm. And that's changed significantly over the years. Just a few years ago, if we were at a conference like this room would look very differently. And now I'm looking at it and I'm like, wow, like this room is very well represented with women. And we have a lot of like women entrepreneurs who are really leading in the cannabis space and like really changing the media platforms around this. One of the things even with these is like we're able to see like who's purchasing, and right now we have like probably about 1 in 3 of the customers that go through Ease it's a woman, and that number is constantly going up. So like we're very much focused on, well, if consumers are the ones purchasing are women, then we need to have like a female perspective, and so it's important for us to have executives. I mean, I think it just within the past 6 months, we have like an 88% of our leadership is now women at Ease, which is like so different than any other industry.
Yeah, I was just going to tackle that a little bit from a brand perspective. We hosted an event for women in San Francisco recently to help people come out of the canna closet. And it was wildly attended, much to our surprise. And there was lots of chat amongst the women about saying that they felt uncomfortable shopping in cannabis stores still, which I think for those of us in the industry, we're like, our head is so deep in the sand that we're not always aware of that. And my response to them in continuing this kind of evolution and progress of weed being kind of more available and more accessible and kind of produced with women in mind is basically the same thing we're being told in 2018 in general, is vote with your dollars. We're tracking everything now, so it's no longer an industry where we're not looking at data and we're not kind of building products with analytics behind those decisions. So if more women are coming into dispensaries or writing into Ease or writing into companies and asking for female products and talking about what the use case is that they want the product for, we will make more female-centric products. So I think, it's been this pretty male-dominated consumer base for a long time, but the more we speak up about our interest in the product and the more we educate people on the various ways to use the product, the more products I think will be out there for women, which will close that gap and that delta of kind of evening out this industry.
Well, and I think that just one last point is that, not to ostracize the men in the room, because we all know men are important in this industry, but if you think about how women have been judged over time, we have always been scrutinized much more heavily than men since the dawn of ages. Things are starting to balance out, but there's still a tilt. We're still treated differently. We're still underpaid in certain companies that we work for, where our voices aren't as loud and as respected. And I feel that having women be so prominent in this industry is good for both sides. It's good for men and it's good for women, because if a woman is doing it, it is judged much more heavily than if a man is doing it. And if all these women are stepping up and saying, you know what, I'm a mom and I smoke pot and I eat edibles and I'm a great mom because of it, then I think that can do nothing more than benefit this industry that much more, because it takes away that taboo.
So women are changing the image of cannabis, and I think also the image of the cannabis consuming woman is changing, or the woman in cannabis is changing. If you've gone to High Times Cup, you've probably seen the 420 nurses, and that's one image of cannabis, these super sexy 420 nurses. And then you have moms, and you have anyone here on this panel or anyone in this room really. So has there been a moment for you when it would have been easier to be a man, or you feel like because you were a woman, you know, you were somehow disadvantaged, and how can we kind of push the industry past that? Because this is still a male-dominated industry. Women are not the majority of leaders yet, even though they're a larger plurality than other industries. So whoever wants to start off with that.
I have dealt with sexual harassment in the industry, and that I think all females have. If I was a male, it would have been a very different situation. I have met with investors who call me girl, and I correct them and say, no, I'm a woman or a lady. I wouldn't call you boy. And they say, oh, no, it's interchangeable. No, it's not. No, it doesn't work like that. You know, a lot of men come talk to me because I'm pretty, and if they only want to talk to me because I'm pretty, I will definitely say something to them. I'm one of the people in this industry who's very vocal, and I will put a man in his place. But sometimes it does work to my advantage, where they come talk to me because I'm pretty, and then they continue talking to me because I'm smart.
Yeah, absolutely. I've had those wide eyes before when I'll see a boardroom full of men and I walk in and they're like, mm-hmm, and then they're like, okay, she actually has a brain in her head. You know, and for me, unfortunately, I still have to really take those types of situations into consideration. How do males interact with males? How do males interact with females? And, you know, it's not that I'm trying to bag on male society. I love men. I think they're fantastic. We wouldn't be here if they weren't for men and women. But they're in the business industry, there are still differences. And when I'm doing licensing deals, or if I'm putting together multi-million dollar contracts and I'm trying to raise funds for research, I have a man negotiate those contracts for me because I know they're going to get further. And I really hope that changes, and I hope that evolves. But that has been something that myself and my male counterparts all unfortunately agree on, is that I bring them in with the passion and the authenticity and the love for patients, and then they have to go in and they have to do the hard sell and do the close, because the negotiation process between myself and another man will go differently than it will if it's a man and a man, and that's something that I'm still seeing today.
So yeah, women also can identify, I guess, with being sort of the underdog in a male-dominated world. Also, cannabis is often like the underdog, you know, is used to scapegoat the underdog. So a lot of people of color, marginalized communities are still being, are still feeling the adverse effects of the war on drugs. And I think the female experience within cannabis can almost help push it forward toward a more equal place. So I guess, Jennifer, I think this is something you want to speak to, is how can women work to ensure a more equal and diverse cannabis industry going forward?
Yeah, I mean, well, first up, I think just having these discussions is huge for the industry, especially, you know, we're different from a lot of other industries. Instead of being reactive, this industry is being proactive, so it's right that we're like doing these things from the beginning and getting it right. I think that, you know, continuing to fight for like equity within this industry. I think, you know, when we're starting, California is being looked at very closely and as a model to other states. So when we think even just from the social equity, we're not just thinking from that, we're looking at the industry as a whole to make it sure that we're like creating a diverse industry across the board, whether it is black and brown, whether it's the queer community, or whether it's women. So I think that's like having these discussions, making sure that we're still creating media platforms to challenge each other on this and holding each other accountable.
Mm-hmm. I think it's important for everyone to realize that for every one white person that is jailed for smoking cannabis, 4 African Americans are jailed. Mm-hmm. And it's not because African Americans are smoking more weed, it's because they're the ones getting penalized for it. So trying to raise awareness about that and trying to create a fair system is very important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's in this... And you're right, because in this day and age, it's not just about women anymore, it's about equality as a whole. And one of the things that I'm from a very small town in Tennessee. One red light growing up, it now has 2, but one of them only works half the time, so it's really 1.5. And in my community, it was all white people. And I literally didn't grow up with the kind of diversity that people do here in Los Angeles. I love being around diversity. I love working with people of all ages, races, whether they want to be with a man and a woman and a woman. However, I love that diversity, because what I have learned, being a cancer parent and looking at each day and not knowing whether or not my little girl is going to be with me tomorrow, has given me such an appreciation of life. And what we all have to remember is that we're all the same on the inside. We all have a heart that pumps blood. We all breathe the same air. We all eat the same food. And it really all should just be about love and acceptance. Religion should not be the barrier. Race should not be the barrier. Sexual preference should not be the barrier, especially in the cannabis industry. In my opinion, this plant is about love. It's about healing. It's about bringing people together, a community of diverse individuals from all over the world. And I really hope to see this initiative in this community be one of the driving forces in knocking down diversity across the board.
Okay, so it also, we have such powerful women up here. I just want to remind everyone that women are not a majority of leaders in cannabis yet. They're not even 30%. I think maybe there was a stat a couple years ago that went above 30% and it dropped. As more and more people are excited about cannabis and want to get into it, that means more men, more white men just kind of want to get into weed. And we just need to, what we're talking about here is ensuring that it's more women, more people of color, more people from disadvantaged communities are able to enter this industry also. So how, at least from the female perspective, how can we ensure that, we get above that 30%, we get to 50%, maybe even get to, switch the stat and be 70-30 women to men?
Well, since this is a new and developing industry, women do have a chance to enter it, whereas every other industry, women are having to fight against men to work their way up. We can come in and have the same level and try to go up at the same time as them. And to get more women in this industry, we just need to help each other. Collaboration over competition, there's plenty of success for everyone. So if women just continue to help each other, ask each other, what is your weakness right now? How can I help that? We can all get there quicker, and we can find more and more women CEOs in this industry.
Cool.
I would say, what can the men be doing to get more women into the industry? I think if we're talking about 30% of executives in the cannabis industry, and that number I believe is diminishing, then there's 70% of those executives are men, and those men can make choices to hire women, and not just because they're cheaper, good labor, which is something that I see happening all the time. And if I'm honest, even have to self-check on in hiring practices, is that you can have 2 equal candidates for any position, and almost always is the female going to cost less to a company. So I think, asking ourselves as leaders in the industry, how can we, reduce that wage gap? How can we invite more women onto the team? How can we kind of balance the industry overall? But also to the men out there, how can you help get more women into this industry and close that gap from both a wage perspective and an opportunity perspective?
And I think in life, it's all about knowing your worth. I think that once a person discovers what their worth is, which can sometimes be very challenging and very difficult, it took me a long time for me to establish what my worth was, because I feel like, growing up in a small town and growing up in a time where women were, especially back in those days, because I'm older, I'm in my 40s now, growing up in a time where women didn't have the kind of roles that they have today, it was harder for me. I put up with a lot of sexual harassment, and I kept my mouth shut, and I allowed men to kind of put their thumb down on me, and then I finally figured out, what is my worth, and what do I deserve in life? And this is for everybody. This is for anyone who's quiet, whether it's male or female, and they get picked on and they get pushed down because they don't quite know how to use their voice yet. It's about finding that inner confidence and knowing how to speak up and ask for what you deserve, and not taking anything less, no matter who you are.
And, to that point, like one of the things, I was actually with a bunch of different cannabis companies last week, and they were having the conversation about they have many roles, senior roles actually, within their companies, and they're wanting to create a diverse workplace. And they were saying that they're actually having a problem just getting women to apply for these jobs, which was actually really shocking to me that is an issue. And so, one of the things I was like, well, why is that? What's the issue? And I think one thing, and specifically with this industry and why it started off and it has been very male dominated, is that men are really good. If they don't know something, they're just like, throw me in, coach, like, I will figure it out. And I'm like, an expert, and they just go for it. Whereas us women, sometimes we're like, we need to become the experts first and know everything about it before we go and put ourselves in those roles. And so I think it's more of like, to your point, like, just have the confidence and know your worth and know that it will happen, and like really supporting women and just giving them confidence that we are the right fit and we should be just, more confident in ourselves.
And that's one of the things that's really cool about this industry is none of us went to college to do this. I mean,
I didn't even graduate high school.
Yeah, I didn't graduate college. I mean, I call myself a Van Wilder. I went to college for like 7 years, but taking a few credits here and there. But I never graduated college for anything that I do. And I'm working right now with UCLA doing human trials or preclinical trials that will lead to human trials because I self-taught. And literally everything that I have done, I have self-taught. And in this industry, everything that we're doing now, especially with this god-awful California legalization landscape that we're having to go through, you have to self-teach. And this, I think, creates a lower barrier for entry for everyone that wants to get involved, because if you can focus on what it is you want to do in this industry and you can really dedicate yourself to it, you can teach yourself things that no one with a PhD can tell you because they didn't have the opportunity to learn this themselves.
Yeah, I just want to say that legal cannabis, I think, is spawning a new wave of feminism. We have ladies back there from Cannabis Feminist, which is an actual organization dedicated to advancing a female-run cannabis empire almost. So I recommend that you guys all look that up. But, with this sort of, the support that I'm seeing among women with each other is something that I haven't also experienced in my entire life until I got into the cannabis space. And, there's no competition. It's not a Mean Girls type of environment that generally a lot of all-female environments can have the negative stereotype of being. So with that said, also, is there any advice you would have given to your former self as you're getting into this space, whether, the difficulties of navigating a new gray area legal industry or, being a woman in that industry? So, yeah, anyone start?
I think it's important to ask for help. There's no shame in that. If you have a weakness, ask for help, and there's going to be people there who are willing to help you. I wish I would have started asking for help a long time ago. And then also give back. Give back as much as you possibly can. If you hear, oh, I had a bad day because XYZ, well, let me just go buy you a coffee and make your day better. It's that small, and it could be even larger than that as well. If you have somebody who's interested in writing about you because you're a female, hey, you know what? I've got some other females who are really interesting too. Let's share the love. Like, we can all help each other. We can get there a lot quicker if we just help instead of try to fight each other.
Yeah, true. I was going to say, if I could give myself some wisdom from the past 3 years, I would say be bolder and be patient. I think kicking off a new industry is, 2 steps forward and 10 steps back. And so much of what I would tell myself from 3 years ago is to be bolder in my convictions about things, to trust my gut instinct a little bit more, to share my experience more openly. I think I too, was kind of in in the closet with my own industry experience really early on. I had many college friends of mine thought that I just kind of worked in a pot shop. And I let them think that instead of saying, wait, there's this like big, cool thing happening that I want to share with you. And I've gotten to that point now, but I think be patient. It's been a hell of a ride, and it's going to continue to be for the next couple years.
I would have told myself to raise a lot more money. People have a misconception about cannabis. Everyone thinks that they're going to get in and get rich, and it just isn't. Just forget that. If that's what you think and you're considering getting into the cannabis industry because you think you're going to have millions of dollars in the next 12 months, you are wrong unless you have a massive investor backing you and that money's already there. It's been difficult. It's been a very, very tough road for us because we are a nonprofit and because the money we make, we give back to our patients who can't afford medicine. We have always operated that way. And unfortunately, the little bit of money I did raise in the very beginning was like $100,000. We dumped it all into a grow, and by the second harvest, my own grower robbed us. And we lost everything and took about a $500,000 hit in products and about a $90,000 hit in what we had just invested in that grow that year. So we have always had to just be bootstrapping.
Because you can't call the cops when that happens.
You can't. We couldn't. We're like, what do we do? And somebody's like, get a henchman. And I'm like, I can't. I help sick babies. I can't get a henchman. I can't have this guy's legs broken. That's not a good look for me, nor would I want to do it. But it really, like, if you're going to do it right. Get the funding that you need. Bring in people who know how to build a brand. Get that infrastructure in place, and start it the right way. Because I'm telling you, bootstrapping is not fun for anyone, especially in today's legal climate. The amount of money it takes to enter this industry right now today it's not even fair.
And I'll end on that note is, same ditto to all of that. Definitely take risks, use your intuition. Women are very intuitive, and be patient, because what we're all doing is really creating a movement and really impacting lives in a very positive way.
So we have 5 minutes, and I'll ask one last question. But I just want to say that part of what's also really exciting about this new industry and women getting involved is there's a product that you want that isn't out there, like, make it, and people are doing that. There are pot for period products. There are cannabis CBD face creams. I'm using a CBD carpal tunnel product right now. All sorts of things that are branded by women for women. That is the kind of thing I want to carry in my purse. There are cannabis odor-proof purses for women also. So you think of it, and
stash bags.
You actually can go ahead and make it and get a team of women to help you do that. So on that note, what have been the advantages? We've talked a lot about being a woman persevering through a male-dominated space, but how has it actually worked to your advantage being a woman in the space? Whoever wants to start.
I don't know if it has at all for me. Really. I don't know if being a woman has worked to my advantage at all.
I think a lot of it is like creating this community.
The conversations starting.
Conversations, like I've never felt, as you mentioned, being supported so much by women, and it's not just, helping me professionally, but helping me as like just growing into myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I think as maybe sad as this is, there's this kind of general perception that marketing and branding is sort of fluff in a business world that's often left to women. So early on, having the runway to kind of run with that in the way that I wanted to was maybe an advantage to being a woman in the industry, and sort of being able to fight the fight to better decorate a store so that more women felt comfortable in it, or make our products cuter so that maybe women wanted to buy them. That's maybe it.
For me, it's been a little bit more impactful, I believe, because of the mama bear mentality, working with oncologists, neurologists, ophthalmologists, radiologists, like all of the ologists that I have to work with. when you walk into a hospital with your child and your child is that sick and a doctor tries to tell you no, I feel that the mother empowerment factor really has helped me in those regards for the doctors to take me more seriously, because as a mom, I have done thousands of hours of research so that I go into that hospital and I know that chemo she's about to start. I know the side effects she could potentially have. I know what the potential other options can be. And as mothers, that's kind of what we do. We look out for our young, hence the word mama bear. And because of that maternal instinct inside of me, and because I am a good mother, I have no problem saying that, I'm a damn good mother, I walk into a hospital room and I'm prepared and ready and armed, and those doctors see it and they respect it. And I have not yet had one negative experience with a doctor where I have walked in and said, this is what I do. I'm going to give my child cannabis. This is why I'm going to give my child cannabis. This is how that cannabis is going to interact with this chemotherapy. I do believe it's going to potentiate the effects of it. I do believe it's going to help with her side effects, and I need you to approve her to use it. And not once have they said no. They actually let me keep my child on cannabis when she's taking clinical trials. And this new clinical trial she's about to start right now, the doctor literally came in and went through the list of pharmaceuticals. He's like, Tracy, I don't see anything in here about cannabis. Can you just double check and make sure that I'm not missing a word that I don't know? And we were looking for cannabidiol and all of the other different words that doctors aren't used to reading about, because cannabis isn't something included in these. And I was like, yeah, it's not there. And he's like, great, and you can stay on the cannabis. And it has allowed me to achieve this level of respect with them, and I believe so in the scientific community as well, because people now have seen that I'm a mom who will not stop fighting no matter what. I'm going to be working on a cure for my daughter until the day I die, if it doesn't happen a whole lot sooner. And because of that, that passion and that authenticity that I have around helping this child and all the other children after her, it has truly, truly benefited me in how far I've gotten.
Thank you. We're finishing right on the dot, right on time, so thank you all.
We're punctual. We're women.
Definitely not.
That's awesome.